4 o'clock hour, Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ, college football insider, and someone who was very much involved in a lot of what happened with the change in college football the last year or two with his reporting, including the addition to the Big 12. Brett, thanks for your time. I absolutely love the McMurphy's Law. It's a great weekly piece. For those who don't know about it, they should. It's fantastic. And the interesting one about with Oklahoma State and how consistent they've been, yet they're the ones that remain outside the box when it comes to winning records, top 25 college football playoff. And it just goes to show you, man, you got to take advantage of opportunities when you have them.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, obviously you can look back, for Cowboy fans, Baylor probably kept them out of the playoffs with that goal line stop. There's still some debate whether Oklahoma State would have got in over Cincinnati. People that I talked to thought that Oklahoma State would because of their strength of schedule. But we'll never know because OSU couldn't score, more than 3 points on, 75 plays inside the 20. Not that I'm bitter or anything, as an Oklahoma State a lot. And then you had the missed field goals against Iowa State that went over the crossbar and maybe was good, maybe wasn't good. So, yeah, Oklahoma State got close. They've been consistent. Gundy's taken them to 16 or 17 consecutive bowls, which is pretty amazing. Young OSU fans don't realize how bad Oklahoma State was before Gundy got there. Obviously, Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas were a couple of the highlights, but not many highlights other than that. And then this year, I don't know what to think. I mean, I was at Big 12 Media Day. I don't know if you guys have had Robert Allen on the show before, but he's a longtime color analyst at Oklahoma State. I was at Oklahoma State when he was there, so I talked to him often. And he was talking to me about the outlook for the season, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to think. I go, our Action Network projections has Oklahoma State at maybe 4 wins. He goes, 4? They're going to win 8. I go, dude, all I'm telling you is what the numbers say they're going to be underdogs in 8 games. And he's like, who? And I went through the list. He goes, we'll take care of that. I'm like, I hope you're right. Now, impressive win against Arizona State. They looked god-awful against South Alabama. They made Iowa State's offense look like USC with Lincoln Riley. I mean, they could still go 7-5, but you know what? They could go 2-10. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what in the world is going on. They're off this week. Then they jump back into Big 12 play. But, I think the goal streak is going to be seriously tested this year if the Pokes can get the 6 wins or not.
Brett, some scuttlebutt coming out of Clemson, South Carolina about that maybe the Tigers have figured out a way out of the grant of rights or that a decision could be coming in October. Are you hearing any rumblings on the ACC right now?
I mean, what was reported, it's basically they're saying specifically it's going to happen in October. I have not been told that. I've been told previously that, yes, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, those guys are going to attempt to get out of the ACC. They are going to notify that they are leaving the ACC. The only thing I've never had is a specific timetable. So if it is October, great scoop by I think Post Courier newspaper reported that. Great scoop by them. I have not been able to confirm that. Bottom line is, in 3 years, those schools are not going to be in the ACC. The question is, where are they going to be, and how are they going to find a way out of the grant of rights, and how much money is it going to cost them? I do know from talking to people at various schools around the league, they think there is a way out of the so-called ironclad grant of rights. I do know from talking to people within the ACC, they feel like the grant of rights is ironclad and nobody's going to get out. Ultimately, everything gets settled. This is a little bit different, as you know, because of the grant of rights is still, played out for 12, 13 more years, where it's different for any other conference when a school left, where you have 1, 2, maybe 3 years tops. So this is a totally different animal. I don't think the ACC is simply going to say, okay, write us a check, you can go. But I do think look, it's no secret they know these guys are going to leave at some point. We'll see if it's October. And I do think that's why I was told this. That's why they added, as I like to call them, Calford and SMU, because they're filling up. Because if they go below 14 schools or 15 schools, including Notre Dame, then ESPN can renegotiate their TV deal. So do you want to add schools now when you actually have an opportunity to get some Group 5 schools, even if they are on the left coast? Or do you wait until the last minute and then who knows what's available, and you're basically, picking some corpses from the Americans?
Brett, as
no
you know,
offense to the Americans.
Sorry. Brett, as you know, there's always flickers of realignment talk, and obviously anything with the ACC to what you're suggesting would open up a whole new can of worms for everybody. But as you best understand it right now, we were talking about this article that Max Olson and The Athletic had about just deep diving into the Big 12 and how all that unfolded with picking up the Pac schools. You see from time to time, like, well, what about Oregon State and Washington State, and would they fit? And what is your understanding about where the Big 12 finds itself currently? And is there anything to wanting more of the West with either of those two schools? Where do you think their position is right now on further expansion?
Regarding Oregon State and Washington State, I can sum up the Big 12 interest in 2 words: no and no. I mean, they're not going to do it. They're fine. They're fine at 16. Now, if some things happen with the ACC, that's a different matter. We see where the schools scatter to. Obviously, they're going to look to go to the Big Ten and the SEC. But after a lot of those schools move, I think, again, this is old school me thinking geography actually matters. But I think a great fit geography-wise, if they could bring on Pitt and Louisville. I mean, if you make the backyard brawl a Big 12 game, I mean, but is one of the best rivalries in college football. Louisville and Cincinnati, located very close. That would be a great rivalry too. So if some teams start, leaving from the ACC and then teams are looking for a way out, then I think the Big 12 will look to go beyond 16. As far as Oregon State and Washington State, absolutely not. If they wanted to do that, they would have already done it. They wouldn't have waited until now to do it. And also, there is a narrative out there. Well, they need to help, not necessarily the Big 12, but anybody. They need to help these teams out. They shouldn't be left in the, by themselves. Well, look, you got to worry about yourself. And that's kind of one of the problems with college football is everybody's in their own silo and they're doing what's best for your conference. The Big 12 is going to do what's best for the Big 12, the SEC, what's best for the SEC, et cetera. And so when that happens, you see some crazy realignment. And now you've got Oregon State and Washington State. Who knows what's going to happen with them next year? Are they going to have a 2-team conference with the winner getting a bid to the college football playoff? I know the commissioners met today. They kicked the can down the road a little bit more because they can't make a decision because they don't know what the league's going to look like. But from your initial question, no Cougars and no Beavers for the Big 12.
Brett, why are college coaches so angry today?
I think they've all got rabbit ears, and I think they're very sensitive to things, and everything now is out there on social media. And before social media, if a fan base was upset, or you had people upset, or players were upset, you maybe heard it from that player, or maybe you heard it when you ran into a specific fan or something. If you ran into them in the grocery store or something, now everybody's got a voice, and so all these coaches, they're busting their ass. They're working 25 hours a day. And then all they're seeing is people are mad because they're not winning games by enough. They're not impressive enough. They're not covering the spread, yada, yada, yada. And now they're pushing back. I think a lot of that, is obviously the pressure of being paid that much money. And, it's not the old days where you'd have 2 or 3 years to work something out. A lot of these guys got 1 year to turn this thing around, especially now with the transfer portal. And so I think it's just everybody's, a little bit more sensitive to everything. And these coaches are going to push back and fight back. And kind of what I wrote today about, these coaches are going to use every bit of motivation they can, whether it's real, whether it's, whether they grab it out of thin air. They're going to do whatever they can to get their team jacked up. and they could care less if it's true or not. All they know is they can tell their football team A, B, and C, and hopefully that'll get the team to run through the proverbial brick wall.
Brett, are you surprised that Alabama has found itself in the predicament, and now, even though they had a nice little rally last week and appear to have buoyed their season after the Ole Miss win, but still they haven't solved all their problems?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people questioned Alabama this year, and look, it's funny you asked me that question. They have one loss, they're in the top 12 or 13, and we're like, what the hell's wrong with Alabama? But that's what happens. I mean, and that's why Nick Saban, without question, is the greatest college coach of all time. And I'm not an Alabama homer or anything like that, but that's the reality. I don't even think people appreciate what a great job he's done. I think, unfortunately, we're not going to realize it until his career's done. And then we look back and say, wait, he was ranked number 1 for 12 consecutive seasons. Wait, he never fell out of the top, 15, except for 99% of the week that there were AP polls. Certainly you look at where they are with quarterbacks. They've won with subpar quarterbacks in the past, but that with a combination of a new offensive coordinator and some key losses, defensively also, and you lose Bryce Young, obviously Will Anderson on defense. Now Alabama seems more mortal-like maybe than they have in the past. But you know what? Guess what? They still control their destiny in the SEC. Their loss is out of conference. That's the good news. The bad news is they can't lose again because the 14 playoff is not going to invite a two-loss team, even if it's Alabama. But don't put dirt on Bama's grave yet, because they've done it before when people doubt them. And I would not bet against Saban, but certainly they do look more gettable. I agree with you than maybe in past years, and I think part of it is the lack of star power on offense, specifically at quarterback and wide receiver.
Part of me feels like Saban couldn't be happier that this is the situation that they have to work through some of these things. I think he probably enjoys that to some extent.
Yeah. He's always a heavy favorite. Now every day nobody's giving us a chance. Everybody's doubting us. He's banging that drum every day.
So, Brett, how attractive do you think the Michigan State job will be for potential coaches out there?
Attractive in that you're in the Big Ten and you're going to be at a school that's going to be making close to $100 million in a few years with your media rights deal, and you're going to be on NBC, CBS, and Fox, and all those things. Look, it's obviously, you're starting over from scratch, but with the transfer portal, you can come in and you can change things right away. The challenge for whoever takes over Michigan State is, this is could be similar to how when Deion came to Colorado, except Deion kicked everybody out of Colorado he didn't want. I think if you're at Michigan State, and you're going to be fleeing before you even know who the next coach is going to be, because to get any kind of coach that's a name, and you guys have seen all the lists out there, you're not going to get any of those guys until early December, mid-December, depending on their status as far as the playoffs or New Year's Six games or whatever. And so how many of those Michigan State kids that can play are going to wait around from that? I mean, they're probably right now, making their plans for the next stop. So, yeah, you can do a Deion and bring in a whole new roster to kind of build up your program. But I think it's going to be a tougher build for whoever comes in there. But look, it's a Big Ten job. They're going to get a ton of folks because of what that job will pay and the resources you have in there. That's the good news. The bad news is you have more bodies to climb over. USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. So, forget about, competing with Michigan and Ohio State. Now you got potentially, 2 to 3 more top 25, top 30 teams every year that you're going to be competing with. But ultimately, surprise, surprise, like everything else related to college athletics, it'll depend on money, and Michigan State will have plenty of money to throw at the next guy.
Let me ask you, I had to ask this, Brett. They had this college football playoff meeting, whatever, and they knew that the Pac-12 was unsure of what they were going to do with the Pac-2. Why didn't they just cancel the meeting? Was there really anything they expected to get done?
Well, they also meet about other things, not specifically that. So
Okay.
it's a regular scheduled meeting. So it's on the books that they meet periodically throughout the year. So they talk about other things. There's a million minutia things, possibly future playoff sites, bowl agreements as far as the New Year's Six, TV rights going forward with the 12-team playoff. So this wasn't simply hey, what are we going to do access-wise for the 12-team playoff? There's a lot of other things going on.
Brett, as always, thank you. Great stuff. Action Network HQ, our go-to, one of the national analysts who does an incredible job and with us whenever we can possibly get him. Thank you, Brett. Have a great week.
Hey.
Thank you, Brett McMurphy, on many things. So wait a minute, Craig. Did you ask